Sarin gas attack. It's the morning of March 20th, 1995. Tokyo's subway is packed with commuters during rush hour. Members of a doomsday cult called Aum Shinrikyo board 5 trains across the Tokyo subway system. They're carrying bags of liquid sarin gas, a deadly nerve agent. Once on board, they drop the bags to the floor, poke them with sharpened umbrellas, and walk away. Sarin starts evaporating. People begin choking, convulsing, losing control of their bodies. Some collapse on the platform trying to escape. Breathing becomes impossible, muscles freeze, and death can come within minutes. 13 people were killed. Over 5,000 are injured, some permanently. The attack was part of the cult's plan to bring about an apocalyptic war they believed would cleanse the world. Their leader, Shoko Asahara, had convinced his followers that mass death was necessary for humanity's salvation. He was later arrested, tried, and executed in 2018, along with other senior cult members. September 11th attacks. September 11th, 2001. A hijacked commercial airplane crashes into the North Tower of the World Trade Center in New York City. 18 minutes later, a second plane hits the South Tower. 2 more planes are also hijacked. One crashes into the Pentagon in Washington, D.C. The last, United Airlines Flight 93, never reaches its target. Passengers on board fight back. The plane crashes in a field in Pennsylvania. The mastermind behind the attack was Osama bin Laden, leader of the terrorist group Al-Qaeda. The plan had been in motion for years. The World Trade Center towers collapse within hours. Nearly 3,000 people die that day. Civilians, first responders, airline passengers. The attack wasn't just deadly, it was symbolic. The targets were chosen for what they represented: financial power, military strength, and possibly government leadership, meaning the White House or Capitol, targeted by Flight 93. After 9/11, everything changed. Airports got stricter, intelligence agencies expanded, and the US launched the War on Terror, invading Afghanistan. Utøya Island Massacre. July 22, 2011, we are currently in Norway. In the morning, a car bomb explodes near government buildings in Oslo, killing 8 people and injuring dozens more. While emergency crews respond, the man responsible is already on his way to his next destination. Hundreds of teens are camping on Utøya Island for what should be a weekend of politics, fun, and outdoor activities. The attacker, Anders Behring Breivik, arrives dressed as a police officer. Then he pulls out a gun and starts shooting. For the next 72 minutes, Breivik moves across the island, methodically hunting and killing campers. Some try to swim away, others hide in the woods, some play dead among the bodies of their friends. By the end of it, 69 people are dead, most of them teenagers. He later admits he carried out the attacks to protest what he called multiculturalism and Islamic immigration in Europe. In his manifesto, he described himself as fighting a one-man war against a changing Europe. He was arrested, tried, and sentenced to 21 years in prison, though it can be extended indefinitely if he's considered a threat. Munich Olympics Massacre. On September 5, 1972, 8 members of a Palestinian militant group called Black September snuck into the Olympic Village. They were armed and wearing tracksuits, blending in with athletes. Their target? The Israeli Olympic team. They broke into the Israeli dorm, killing 2 athletes and taking 9 others hostage. Their demand? The release of over 200 Palestinian prisoners held in Israel, plus 2 German radicals held in German prisons. Eventually, German authorities agreed to transport the terrorists and hostages to an airbase, claiming they'd provide a plane for escape. But it was a trap. German snipers were positioned to ambush them at the airfield. However, the plan fell apart almost instantly. The snipers weren't trained for hostage rescue, and there were no night vision scopes. All 9 hostages were killed, 5 of the terrorists were shot, and 1 German police officer died. Boko Haram's Chibok girls kidnapping. On April 14, 2014, the world learned about an extremist group called Boko Haram in the most horrifying way imaginable. That night, over 270 schoolgirls were kidnapped from a boarding school in Chibok, Nigeria. Boko Haram's name roughly means Western education is forbidden, and they were violently opposed to schooling, especially for girls. That night, militants stormed the school posing as Nigerian soldiers. They loaded the girls into trucks and vanished into the Sambisa forest, one of the group's strongholds. For weeks, families begged for action, while the world slowly began paying attention. Eventually, the hashtag Bring Back Our Girls campaign went viral, drawing support from celebrities and even political leaders. Despite international attention, progress was painfully slow. Some girls escaped early on, but most remained captive for years. Reports later revealed that many were forced into marriage, converted by force, or used as human shields in Boko Haram camps. Over the next several years, some of the girls were released through negotiations or rescued by military operations, but as of today, dozens are still missing. Egypt Air Flight 648 hijacking. Egypt Air Flight 648 was on a routine flight from Athens to Cairo when 3 armed men hijacked it mid-air. They were part of Abu Nidal, a brutal Palestinian splinter group known for carrying out attacks across Europe and the Middle East. Their plan was to force the plane to land in Libya, but when fuel ran low, the pilot diverted to Malta instead. That's when things spiraled out of control. The hijackers began separating passengers by nationality. They specifically targeted Americans, Israelis, and Egyptians. Within hours, they had already executed several hostages, pushing bodies down the aircraft stairs to show they were serious. Negotiations with the Maltese government were slow. After nearly 24 hours, Egyptian commandos stormed the plane in a rescue attempt. The commandos tossed stun grenades into the aircraft and opened fire inside the tight cabin. When it was over, 60 of the 95 passengers were dead, most of them killed during the botched rescue attempt. Only one of the terrorists survived. He was later sentenced to life in prison, though he was released decades later under mysterious political circumstances. Charlie Hebdo shooting. On January 7, 2015, in Paris, 2 brothers, Saeed and Sherif Kouachi, forced their way into the offices of Charlie Hebdo, a satirical magazine known for publishing controversial cartoons, including ones depicting the Prophet Muhammad. Armed with rifles and wearing black tactical gear, the attackers opened fire during an editorial meeting, killing 12 people, including cartoonists, editors, and 2 police officers. The attackers claimed they were acting on behalf of Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula. They saw the magazine's work as blasphemous and said they were avenging the Prophet. After the attack, the brothers fled, triggering a 2-day manhunt across France. While police hunted for the Kouachi brothers, another attacker, Amadi Coulibaly, who had ties to the same jihadist network, killed a police officer in a separate incident, and then stormed a kosher supermarket, taking hostages and killing 4 more people. The siege ended on January 9th, when French police launched simultaneous raids, killing both Kouachi brothers at a printing warehouse and Coulibaly at the supermarket. Boston Marathon bombing. It was a bright, crowded afternoon at the finish line of the Boston Marathon. At 2:49 p.m., 2 homemade pressure cooker bombs exploded just 12 seconds apart. The blasts killed 3 people and injured more than 260 others. Many victims were permanently injured and lost limbs. The attackers were brothers, Tamerlan and Dzhokhar Tsarnaev, ethnic Chechens who had lived in the US for years. Their motive was jihadist ideology. They claimed to be avenging wars in Muslim countries, though they weren't part of any formal terror group. Just days later, the FBI released surveillance images of the suspects. That night, the brothers shot and killed an MIT police officer, hijacked a car, and led police on a high-speed chase through the streets of Watertown. In the exchange of gunfire, Tamerlan was killed. Dzhokhar escaped but was later found hiding in a boat in someone's backyard. He was arrested, tried, and sentenced to death in 2015. Oklahoma City bombing. A Ryder rental truck packed with explosives detonated outside the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building. The blast tore through the building, killing 168 people, including 19 children in a daycare center on the 2nd floor. Over 600 others were injured. At the time, the deadliest act of terrorism on U.S. soil. The attacker was Timothy McVeigh, a Gulf War veteran turned anti-government extremist. He carried out the bombing in retaliation for what he saw as federal overreach, especially after the FBI's deadly sieges at Ruby Ridge and Waco. McVeigh built a massive homemade bomb using fertilizer, diesel fuel, and other readily available materials. He parked the truck just outside the building, lit a 5-minute fuse, and walked away. Within 90 minutes of the bombing, McVeigh was pulled over for driving without license plates and arrested for illegal weapons possession. He was tried, convicted, and executed in 2001. Nairobi Westgate Mall attack. September 21, 2013. The Westgate Mall in Kenya is packed with shoppers. At around noon, 4 attackers storm the mall with automatic weapons and grenades. Some people try to hide under tables, others run for the exits. The attackers move from store to store, firing at anyone who can't recite verses from the Quran. The siege lasts 4 days. By the end of it, 67 people are dead, Hundreds are injured and the mall is heavily damaged. The group behind the attack is Al-Shabaab, a militant Islamist organization based in Somalia. Their stated goal? Retaliation against Kenya for deploying troops to Somalia to fight against their militia. During the siege, social media fills with real-time footage made by the hostages. It was one of the first major terror attacks broadcast on social platforms. Fortunately, security forces eventually regained control of the mall. Later investigations found that the attackers had rented a shop inside the mall weeks before the siege. From there, they smuggled in weapons bit by bit. Nice truck attack. On July 14, 2016, crowds gathered in Nice, France to celebrate Bastille Day. Then a white 19-ton cargo truck drove onto the Promenade des Anglais, the main beachfront road. The deadly drive lasted over 4 minutes. In those 4 minutes, the driver managed to kill 86 people and injure hundreds more. The oldest victim was 92, the youngest was an 11-month-old baby. The attacker, Mohamed Lahouayej Boulel, was a 31-year-old Tunisian living in France. He had a history of violence, petty crime, and psychological issues. On top of that, in the weeks before the attack, he had been consuming videos linked to ISIS. The police shot and killed him at the scene. The whole thing exposed how vulnerable public events are, even with increased security. Strasbourg Christmas market shooting, December 11, 2018. Like every year, the Strasbourg Christmas market in France is packed with people. But around 8 p.m., a man named Cherif Chekat opens fire on the crowd using a handgun and a knife. He moves quickly, targeting people at random as he makes his way through narrow market streets. 5 people are killed and 11 are injured. The attacker flees the scene in a stolen taxi, sparking a massive 2-day manhunt involving over 700 police officers. The border with Germany is locked down. Helicopters and armored vehicles fill the streets. 2 days later, police tracked Chekat down in Strasbourg's Neudorf district. After a brief shootout, he is shot and killed. Chekat had a long criminal history, 27 convictions across France, Germany, and Switzerland. He had also officially been flagged as a threat to national security. London 7/7 bombings. On July 7, 2005, 3 explosions went off almost simultaneously across the London Underground. They were caused by terrorists detonating themselves in the subway. Less than an hour later, a 4th bomb exploded, this time on a double-decker bus in Tavistock Square. In total, 52 people were killed, and more than 700 were injured. The bombers used explosives called the Mother of Satan. Ingredients were legally bought from pharmacies and hardware stores. The culprits were quickly identified as the sons of Pakistani immigrants who radicalized themselves. In the aftermath, London's entire transport system shut down. Mumbai sieges. It started on November 26, 2008. 10 gunmen arrived in India by boat. These weren't amateurs. They were heavily armed and trained by the Pakistan-based terror group Lashkar-e-Taiba. They split up into groups and hit multiple high-profile locations at once. Chhatrapati Shivaji train station, Taj Mahal Palace Hotel, Oberoi Trident Hotel, a hospital, a Jewish community center, and a cafe. For nearly 3 days, they held these places hostage. Local police were caught off guard and were poorly equipped. Some officers reportedly went in with World War II-era rifles. By the time the Indian National Security Guard commandos arrived, 166 people were dead and over 300 were injured. One of the attackers, Ajmal Kasab, was caught alive. His capture revealed the well-planned military-style assault with terrorist backing. USS Cole bombing. The USS Cole, a US Navy destroyer, is docked in Yemen. The ship is there to refuel. That morning, a small boat approached the Cole. On board are 2 attackers from Al-Qaeda, pretending to be maintenance workers or harbor crew. What they were actually carrying was about 400 to 700 pounds of explosives. The explosion punches a 40-foot wide hole in the side of the vessel. The ship almost sinks. The attack is later traced back to Jamal al-Badawi, who had a long history of working with terrorist networks. US investigators found that the attackers had spent months planning and rehearsing with fake boats, blending in with normal port traffic to avoid suspicion. And the worst part? This happened just 11 months before September 11th, Al-Qaeda's next plan. Thanks for watching. See the video on your screen. Well, YouTube thinks this one might interest you as well, so go ahead and check it out if you like.